The woman's hands shook as she pressed them against the bullet wound in her shoulder, blood seeping through her fingers like spilled wine on Sunday cloth. She'd been running for 3 days, and now she sat slumped against Samuel Hartwell's barn door, watching him load supplies into his wagon by lamplight. The rancher moved with deliberate calm, as if wounded strangers appeared in his yard every night. "I ain't worth saving," she whispered, her voice barely cutting through the September wind. Samuel paused, a grain sack halfway to the wagon bed. He turned, studying her face in the amber glow. Lines weathered his features like creek beds carved by decades of hard seasons, but his eyes held something she hadn't expected, recognition, not of her face, but of her desperation. "Too late," he said, tipping his hat. "Already decided." The woman she'd told him her name was Catherine, though they both knew it wasn't, stared at him with the hollow gaze of someone who'd run out of everything but breath. Her dress, once blue as a clear sky, now hung in tatters. Mud and worse things stained the fabric. She clutched a small leather pouch against her chest, like it contained her soul. Samuel continued loading. "Bandages, food, water, a rifle. Where we going?" she asked. "Somewhere they ain't." He secured the wagon cover with practiced knots. "Can you ride?" She tried to stand, swayed, caught herself against the barn. "I can try." The night pressed close around them, thick with the smell of approaching rain and something else, the metallic scent of violence that seemed to follow her like a shadow. In the distance, a coyote called, lonesome and wild. Samuel's horses shifted nervously in their traces. He helped her into the wagon bed, his touch gentle despite the calluses. She winced as he arranged blankets around her, but didn't pull away. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford, yet here she was, placing her life in the hands of a stranger who asked no questions. Thunder rumbled overhead. Samuel climbed onto the driver's seat, took up the reins and clicked his tongue. The wagon lurched forward into the darkness, wheels creaking a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. Behind them, the ranch house grew smaller, its windows glowing like watching eyes. Neither spoke of what they were leaving, or what might be following. The wagon rolled through the night, following old cattle trails that wound between sagebrush and scattered stones. Catherine drifted in and out of fevered sleep, mumbling names Samuel hoped never to hear spoken aloud again. When dawn broke gray and cold, he pulled the wagon into a grove of cottonwoods beside a creek. She woke when he lifted her down, crying out as the movement jarred her wound. "Easy," he murmured. "Need to clean that shoulder 'fore it goes bad." As he peeled away the makeshift bandage, Catherine studied his face. "You know who I am." It wasn't a question. Samuel's hands never paused as he cleaned the wound with creek water and whiskey. "I know who folks say you are." "Then you know what I done." "I know what they say you done." He met her eyes, difference being, "I weren't there." Catherine's laugh held no humor. "3 men are dead because of me. Good men, a sheriff's son among him." She winced as he applied fresh bandages. "There's a price on my head big enough to buy half of Texas." Samuel packed away his supplies with methodical care. Around them the creek whispered secrets to the wind. A hawk circled overhead, patient and predatory. "Why you helping me?" she asked. "Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe you are." She shifted, trying to find a position that didn't send fire through her shoulder. "But that ain't an answer." Samuel was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't speak. "Then had a daughter once. About your age. She made mistakes." His voice carried the weight of old grief. Nobody helped her when she needed it most. The admission hung between them like morning mist. Catherine understood the shape of his pain, recognized it in the careful way he avoided looking at her directly. A sound drifted through the trees, the distant drum of hoofbeats. Samuel's head snapped up, his body going still as a deer sensing wolves. "How many men they send after you?" he asked. Catherine's face went white. "All of them." The hoofbeats grew closer, accompanied by voices shouting back and forth. Samuel counted at least 6 riders, maybe more. He helped Catherine to her feet, supporting her weight as they moved deeper into the trees. "Can you shoot?" he whispered. She nodded, though her hands still trembled. He pressed his spare revolver into her palm. The metal felt heavy and cold, like a promise of violence she'd hoped never to make again. The posse emerged from the morning haze like vengeful spirits, 6 men on lathered horses with dust-caked faces and eyes hard as flint. Sheriff Marcus Webb rode at their head, his star catching what little sunlight filtered through the clouds. Behind him came his deputy, 2 ranch hands and a pair of bounty hunters, whose reputations preceded them like the smell of death. Samuel recognized Webb's voice before he saw the man, that particular brand of righteous anger that came from losing someone you loved. "I know you can hear me, Hartwell," Webb called out, his words echoing off the creek bank. "We tracked your wagon from the ranch. You're harboring a murderer." Samuel pressed Catherine deeper into the cottonwood shadows, his finger on his rifle's trigger. She was pale as winter moonlight, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool morning air. "She killed my boy," Webb continued, his voice breaking on the words. "Shot him down in cold blood along with 2 others. Turn her over, and we'll let you ride away from this." Catherine's grip tightened on the revolver. "I should go," she whispered. "End this before more good men die." "Nobody else dies today," Samuel said quietly. The bounty hunters had spread out, circling the grove like wolves around wounded prey. Samuel could see them through the trees, hard men who killed for coin and called it justice. They carried themselves with the casual confidence of those who'd never met their match. "Last chance, Hartwell," Webb shouted. "Send her out or we come in shooting." Samuel stepped into the clearing, rifle held loose but ready. "Sheriff Webb, been a while." Webb's face twisted with surprise and something else, old respect warring with fresh grief. "Sam, why you doing this? You know what she is." "I know what you think she is. I know what she is." Webb's horse danced sideways, sensing its rider's agitation. "She's a killer, a devil in woman's clothing." The wind picked up, rustling the cottonwood leaves with a sound like whispered prayers. One of the bounty hunters shifted in his saddle, hand drifting toward his gun. Samuel's rifle moved to track him with predatory precision. "Easy, boys," Samuel called out. "No need for this to get ugly. It got ugly the moment you chose to protect her." Webb replied, "Stand aside, Sam. This is your last warning." Behind the trees, Catherine made her choice. She stepped into the open, hands raised, the revolver hanging loose in her grip. Blood had soaked through her fresh bandages, staining her dress like a crimson flower. "I'm here, Sheriff," she said. "Let's finish this." The silence that followed felt like the held breath before lightning strikes. The moment stretched taut as a bowstring, 6 guns trained on the woman who'd haunted Sheriff Webb's nightmares for months. Catherine stood swaying in the morning light, her face set with the terrible calm of someone who'd accepted their fate. But Samuel stepped between her and the guns. "She's wounded," he said quietly. "Bleeding bad. At least let her tell her side before you decide." Webb's laugh was bitter as alkali dust. "Her side? She murdered 3 men in cold blood." "Did I?" Catherine's voice cut through the tension like a blade. She looked directly at Webb, and for the first time since this began, her fear gave way to something else, defiance. "Tell me, Sheriff, what exactly did your witnesses see?" Webb's jaw worked, but he said nothing. One of the bounty hunters spat tobacco and growled, "Saw enough." "No," Catherine continued, taking a shaky step forward despite Samuel's protective presence. "They saw a woman running from a burning saloon. They saw 3 dead men inside. They made the rest up." She reached into her dress with careful movements, producing the leather pouch she'd clutched since Samuel found her. With trembling fingers, she opened it, revealing not gold or jewels, but a daguerreotype. A little girl with dark curls and serious eyes. "Your boy didn't die trying to arrest me, Sheriff," she said, her voice breaking. "He died trying to protect me. All 3 of them did." Webb's face went white. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the men who killed your son are still out there, and they're still coming." Catherine's legs gave out, and Samuel caught her before she fell. "The Brennan brothers, they own half the territory, judges and most of the marshals. When I saw what they did to that Comanche family, when I tried to stop them," the admission hung in the air like smoke. Webb's deputy shifted nervously, recognition flickering in his eyes. "The Brennans been looking for a woman," the deputy said slowly. "Someone who saw something she shouldn't have." Webb stared at the photograph in Catherine's hands, his son's young face frozen in silver and time. When he looked up, Tears tracked through the dust on his cheeks. Johnny always was too brave for his own good, he whispered. Samuel felt Catherine's weight against him, felt her life bleeding away drop by precious drop. Around them, the cottonwoods rustled with approaching danger. The real killers would follow the posse's trail, just as they'd followed hers. "Sheriff," Samuel said quietly, "we got bigger problems coming." In the distance, thunder that wasn't thunder rolled across the plains. The Brennan brothers came like a plague of locusts, 15 riders strong with murder in their hearts and corruption in their pockets. But they found more than they bargained for waiting in that cottonwood grove. A sheriff who finally knew the truth, 2 bounty hunters who'd grown tired of working for the wrong side, and a handful of good men who'd chosen justice over easy money. The battle was swift and brutal. Samuel's rifle spoke with deadly accuracy, while Catherine, despite her wounds, proved she could still handle a gun when cornered. Sheriff Webb fought with the fury of a father avenging his son, and when the smoke cleared, the Brennan reign of terror was ended forever. Catherine collapsed when it was over, her face gray with blood loss. Samuel knelt beside her as Webb and his men dealt with the aftermath, pressing his hands against her wounds to stem the bleeding. "I told you," she whispered, managing a weak smile, "told you I weren't worth saving." Samuel's weathered face softened. "And I told you it was too late, already decided." "Why?" Her voice was barely audible above the wind. Samuel was quiet for a moment, studying her face, so young beneath the pain and exhaustion. Finally he spoke. "My daughter, she got mixed up with bad men too, made one mistake, and the whole world turned against her. She died alone, thinking nobody cared enough to help." He lifted Catherine gently, carrying her toward the wagon, where Webb waited with medical supplies and genuine remorse. "Every person deserves someone willing to stand with them when the darkness comes," Samuel continued, "even if they don't think they're worth it, especially then." Sheriff Webb cleaned and stitched Catherine's wounds with surprising gentleness, his hands steady despite his earlier grief. "I owe you an apology, miss, and a debt I can't ever repay." Catherine survived, as the strong ones always do. Webb saw to it that her name was cleared, that the truth about his son's death was told in every newspaper from Amarillo to San Antonio. The bounty on her head became a reward for her bravery, enough to start a new life wherever she chose, but she chose to stay. Years later, folks in that part of Texas would tell stories about the woman who helped Samuel Hartwell run his ranch, who could outshoot most men and showed kindness to every wounded soul who found their way to her door. They'd speak of how she and the old rancher had turned that place into something like sanctuary, where the lost could find their way and the broken could heal. Samuel never did learn her real name, and Catherine never told him. Some truths were better buried, like seeds that grew into something beautiful when left in the dark soil of forgiveness. On quiet evenings, when the work was done and the sun painted the sky red as blood, they'd sit on the porch and watch the horizon. Sometimes she'd ask him again why he'd saved her, and he'd tip his hat and give the same answer: "Too late, already decided." And in the fading light, with the wind carrying the scent of sage and second chances, those words sounded exactly like grace.